and welcome to my channel. Or if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal, and this is Seamageddon. Get it? Seamageddon? Like Armageddon from the ocean? Use my little hammerhead. And welcome. He wants to watch. How do they watch? From the side? Anyway, welcome to day 2 of my second Shark Week, and we are going to move on now to Deep Blue Sea 2. What is that scene? Oh, that's not an actual scene. Okay. Deep Blue Sea 2 was released in 2018. That's a long, long time after the original. It was directed by Darin and written by Duncan. It stars Danielle Savre, Rob Mays, and Michael Beach. Now, let's get one thing clear right off the bat. This is not a sequel to Deep Blue Sea. It has nothing at all to do with Deep Blue Sea. It is a reboot, not a sequel. So don't let the two fool you. It's just a second movie with this name. There is a connection, but it is not mentioned in this movie. The connection is just basically one line that you hear in Deep Blue Sea 3. And yeah, so it's not a sequel. It's a reboot. And yeah, we're going to talk about it. What was its rating? It was like 3.4 on this. The people are so silly. It's not that bad. It's not good, but it's not that bad. It was watchable. I liked it. I had, there was some good stuff in it. It had two really big flaws, really, really, really big flaws. One of it was not its fault. The other was. The writing was very lazy because it's almost, as many reboots are, its writing was pretty lazy in that they did manage to find a way to make another one. But for some reason, they really mirrored, I would say 50% of this movie is just a complete mirror of the first movie of Deep Blue Sea. So it's like, well, that's not imaginative. I do like the story that you came up with to continue this franchise. But you didn't have to use so many of the same scenes and the same problems, which you will see when I narrate it. But is it 3.4? No, it's perfectly all right. I liked it. When I was through, I'm like, it was all right. There was a couple major flaws, and that was it. The other is not its fault, and that is it suffered from a very low budget, and they really couldn't do a whole lot as far as special effects because of the budget. So I'm not just, being an apologist for the movie, but I liked a lot of it. So that's just the way it is. Now, it opens with an illegal shark fishing vessel named Nevu. You have these two fishermen who are killing sharks for shark fin soup, which I went to Google and read about that after seeing this movie, and I think that's horrible. I think it should be illegal worldwide, and I think they should not do that. And I'm not a fan of sharks. I'm a fan of that shark, but I'm not a fan of sharks. I would never go into the ocean. Jaws was it for me. Jaws and getting bit by a jellyfish, I was through at 14. I've never been back in the ocean since then. And I live next to the beach. So that shows you exactly what kind of impact Jaws and getting stung by a jellyfish did to me. So they're killing these sharks to make shark fin soup when we see 5 fins come out of the water. And these 5 fins, they're like a wolf pack, which was really cool. They plotted and planned, hit the boat, got them knocked into the water. They were attacked, and both of them ended up being eaten. And then we see this research team. Now, before this all happened, they had been warned. There was a thing on the radio that came on and said, if you are in this vicinity of water, you need to leave. And we find out why right now. And they ignored it, though, because, they wanted to keep doing what they did, and their reward was shark karma for them. So I wasn't exactly upset with their deaths. Now, you see a team that sent out that warning. They find the boat and they don't find them, and the guy gets knocked in. He gets knocked into the water too. This guy that was leading the boat. And he's going to be eaten because these 5 sharks, they come right at him like a pack, and he holds up this thing and he mashes the button, and when he mashes the button, they stop, and then they turn around and they go back, and you're like, well, that was neat. What the fuck was that? Right? So they charge him, but he uses some device around his neck, and they break and follow his boat instead. So you're like, okay, some shit's up there. Have they been trained or something? What's up? So we are then, remember, you'll hear a lot of mirroring. Remember how Susan was at the thing? Okay, well, here's Misty giving a lecture on sharks at this facility she runs, the 5 Oceans Institute research facility, and she's there giving a presentation to try to get funding, exactly like the first movie. So, well, not exactly, but, similar. So Trent, that was that guy that had mashed that thing. He brings them back to the center, jumping all over one of the guys in the room. And the place looks very, very similar to the facility in the first movie. And he jumps all over him about them getting escaped, or they don't understand how. They ended up finding, looking, because they're using the cameras. They're going, how did they get out? They find a tunnel where these fucking sharks had tunneled under the fence to get out. So that's how that happened. Now we're introduced to Grant. Grant approaches Misty at that place and says that they would like to hire her as a consultant with their company on a research project. So, they offer her $50,000 if you'll come and let us, no obligation. Here's $50,000 if you'll just come and let us talk to you and show you something. So she agrees to that. Hell, I would agree to that. Well, I don't know. Now that I've seen this, I might not. But so Grant approaches her to consult on his company. We get introduced to Aaron, who is the guy that Trent blamed for the sharks having gotten away, that they had, dug a tunnel. Now, Trish, on the way to this facility, Trish is introduced to Dan and Leslie. They are a married couple, but they are they are both scientists and research scientists, so they have also been recruited. Now those three arrive at the facility, and are introduced to Carl and the team. Carl is the guy that runs this facility. He owns it. He's a billionaire or something. Carlton. He is like a billionaire, and this is his facility, and he is the leader of it all, and he puts on his little presentation, and just like in the first one, the first thing that they do when they get there, which was a scary scene, was he pushed Aaron into the water pen with those sharks, and they came at him, and they let them come really close, and he's screaming, trying to get back to the dock when he does, when Trent does that thing again, and the sharks turn around and go the other way. So Aaron is quite pissed because they just used him as a demonstration. I would be very unhappy myself in that kind of situation. So he then takes them down into the lab, also very familiar to the first, and tells them about this project. So the reason, because she's like really pissed, because she had to jump in and save Aaron. So Trish is like really pissed and is like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he's like, well, I had to do that to show you this amazing thing that we've done in controlling these sharks like we did. So he ends up, telling her about this project. And that project is that, not about Alzheimer's this time, it's about speeding up evolution in humans. So you actually see Carl in the privacy of his room drink a little vial of stuff, and he has this like mental Einstein looking writing, like he has that kind of experience, and it's like it's increasing his intelligence and stuff. So you're like, oh, okay, so this movie is like going down some eugenics type of superhero thing, like where he wants to increase the brain power, and you find out why, and it actually makes sense when you find out why he's doing this, where that idea came from. So when he gets along with Trent, Trent tells him about them escaping, and he's like, oh, I've got this place rigged. We have the safety net, and, I'm going to get this done, and then I'm going to kill these sharks. And if something were to happen, this place is set up for me to take care. Which is basically, the whole facility is rigged, and he can blow it up with one little key and button. So it's not really kind of a situation I would want to be hanging out in myself personally, but then, these scientists, they, So Carl claims to Trish, when he talks to her again, that he has this new drug to increase the intelligence. Now, the reason that he is doing this, the purpose for this research is artificial intelligence. And this kind of makes sense. He says that one day artificial intelligence will unseat humans as the dominant species. And then, you kind of think like to Genesis in Terminator and Transcendence with Johnny Depp, and you're like, okay, that's a valid point. And what he is saying is that artificial intelligence will increase to the point where it will find man useless. And that's what happened in Terminator. That's what happened in Transcendence. That's what happens in Ex Machina, and in the male version of Ex Machina. I love that movie too, and the name escapes me because I'm fucked up on antihistamines in my eye. Uncanny. That's the name of that movie. Uncanny. So yeah, in a lot of artificial intelligence movies, that point is made. So his point is valid, and I can see where he's coming from, and he wants to increase. He wants to create this drug because AI is moving so fast that if humans do not increase their intelligence portent, they won't be able to keep up. And then artificial intelligence will be able to outthink us, thereby unseating us, thereby turning into fucking Terminator or something. So Trish also learns at that time that, because she's like, that's crazy, it's not going to work and all that kind of stuff. So he admits that he's been taking it himself and it's been working just fine. So, I don't know how you would judge yourself. It's like I couldn't put together a transmission yesterday, but I take this serum and then I read a book and I can put together a transmission in a Ford F10, F-150. So I guess there's a way for you to prove that the drug increased your intelligence. So they had a similar scene, where the shark tried to bite the guy that was taking the extract out of its head and all, just like in the first movie. Only this time it didn't bite the guy's arm off. So it was sort of like a nod to it, I guess. And they start talking about, well, I don't understand why, she's acting this way. Bella is what they call this one. So Trish informs them, being a shark expert, so she's sort of like Carter from the first movie. She informs them, well, I can tell you why she's acting this way. She's pregnant. And they're like, oh, well, that's not a good sign. I can see potential problems coming from this genetically altered shark having babies. Yeah? What kind of babies? Are the babies going to be... Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So, that's a little twist. And all of a sudden at that time, the sharks begin attacking the facility. Just like in the first one. Knocking the cams out. They start, the facility starts being flooded. They spilled like the fuel tanks on the top, blew the place up. So instead of a helicopter blowing up the top level, it was a bunch of spilt fuel. So knocked out the comms. Boom, boom, power's down. Facility begins to sink. We get our first kill, and that is, of the group. And that is Craig. He gets shredded in an ugly way. And we then find out that the reason Bella acted that way at that particular time was because she was in labor and now she has given birth. And like one of the guys says in it, babies need to eat. So not only does she want to escape, but, we need to open up this facility so that my babies can get in here and eat. You people. So that was pretty cool. So of course now facility starts to sink. Everything's getting underwater. She's given birth. So you have this little pack of baby sharks about the size of that. And so you've got this little pack of baby sharks. It's definitely piranha, the original piranha. That's what this is, this little pack of baby sharks. So not only are the big sharks, which was 5, so not only are these 5 sharks making their way into the facility, but you've also got this little pack of piranha sharks, right, that are running around looking for somebody to eat. Again, they start trying to figure out, like the first movie, they start trying to figure out how the fuck to get up there. They decide, they're going to go through the pool and swim out. And one of them, he wants to go down there and try it. He's like, I'm getting out of here. So he goes down there and try it, and he ends up getting, his head eaten off, which was a pretty cool scene at the pool. Trisha's like, we cannot leave these sharks. She wants them dead. The pool blows, same as in the first movie. How do we get out? You've got the Daniel's kill. Well, he doesn't. No. He doesn't get killed. But he's getting chased by the baby sharks. And that is a really good scene where in one of the hallways, this little piranha, like Tasmanian devil of piranha baby sharks is coming. And he ends up like jumping up and holding and then pulling his feet up. So he's like hanging over the water. And the little baby sharks all get up under him and they're like jumping up, trying to bite his ass and stuff like that. That was a really cool scene. It was really well done. It's like, of course it had to be CGI, right? But that was pretty good CGI. I mean, that looked very neat, and I was definitely in tension at that moment. So, you have them trying to get Daniel, but he gets away. Josh gets eaten by the baby pack in the shower because him and, I guess it was Aaron, they are trying to escape, and they get into this room. And Aaron, he like is on the top bunk of the mattress, right? And the other guy like falls into the water, and here comes those baby sharks. So he ends up like going into the shower. Like you can close the shower door, right? So he closes the shower, but those babies are like, there's fucking 25 of us, man. Bang, 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 bang. And they start like cracking the glass, and they get into him, and the water gets high enough to go over it, and then they all pour in and they're on him. And that was a pretty good scene. Bloody, gory as he is eaten. It wasn't quick. He screams a lot, and Aaron has to hear it. That was a pretty intense scene. So I liked that scene. Josh is ate by them in the shower. Carl locks Misty. Carlton, he's a fucking asshole. He ends up, because she had heard Daniel screaming, so she kind of broke off from Carlton and Trent and went down a hall. Fucking Carlton, like, he gets into that main room that leads to the shaft, and he locks her out. Like, she comes to the door. And Trent starts to beat his ass for doing that. But he had broke the thing off the door, so Trent couldn't do anything about it. It's like, we got to get out. And you've got Aaron floating around on the mattress, trying to, like, paddle down the hallways, like you damn sure aren't going to get into the water, right? And I'm like, is it because it's an underwater facility they have mattresses that float? Or would a mattress float? I would think that a mattress, when it got wet, would sink eventually, but I don't know. I've never worked in an underwater facility. It makes sense that the mattresses would float. Perhaps they're made out of something that will float. But he's using it like a boat, which is really cute. So Leslie gets eaten, and that's another pretty gross scene, and also kind of mentally distressing, because Daniel and her had gotten separated, and when Daniel does finally hear her, and he sees her out the window of one of the bulkhead doors, but he can't get it open because of the water pressure. And there she is, and she comes up to the window, and the water fills up, and she's like eaten in front of him. So his wife gets eaten in front of him, which is it's a good scene. It was pretty mentally, and it was gross. I'm not saying that the gore in this movie was bad. The gore was pretty good. It's got some gory stuff in it, just not as much as it could have had it had a bigger budget. So Trent and Carl end up facing off when they get to the surface, because, Trent immediately calls for evac, and then Aaron and Dan, they find Misty down there. So they end up running into each other. So finally, because unlike in the first movie where like everybody was a team, almost everybody in this movie was like surviving on their own. Misty was alone trying to get out. Leslie and Daniel was alone. Aaron was alone because of that Josh getting killed. So you had a bunch of people who were having to depend on their own, sort of like Preacher in the first movie. They were being stalked individually instead of as a group, and were trying to get out on their own. So now that those three ran into each other, Misty ends up getting separated again, while Carl and Trent start really fighting up there on the front. So they're at the surface. They see an evac drone come, and you're like, why did the evac place send a drone? And he tells the other guy, it's like because they want to make sure it was real, like a real thing. But before the drone can get up there to them, like close enough for them to communicate with whomever was running the drone, at the med center or whatever, or at the rescue center, a shark jumps up and eats the drone. So you at least get to see the sharks alive. Aaron makes it to the surface. And Daniel makes it to the surface. Because remember, Misty had gotten separated again. So when Aaron and Daniel managed to get to the surface, and then Carlton and Trent was trying to help them out of the hatch thing, that was a gross scene, because the water had been filling up underneath them, and Aaron got out, and then they reached down and they grabbed Daniel and they pulled him up, and he's like trying to get out, but then he starts making a bunch of really fucked up noises, and when they pull him on out, his bottom half is gone. So them babies had ate him. That was nasty. Okay, that was nasty. So who do you have left now? Oh, you have Aaron, Carlton, and Trent. So they get on a boat and they're trying to escape, and Trent ends up shooting Bella with flares after she eats Carl, which is a wonderful kill, because nobody deserved it more than Carlton. He was the asshole that you wanted died. I even wrote nice shot. And what I meant by nice shot is seen. It was a nice scene because he deserved what he got. Now, Misty and Trent, Misty's made it to the top. She had swam up because the sharks were busy with them. So she manages to get up and the three leave, but Misty demands that the sharks can't survive. So we can't leave because they can't survive. We have to have them dead. And that's when Trent says that that's okay. I know what to do. Because he had made Carl give him the key to the little doomsday device and blew the facility up with it. Now, 3 weeks later, because they get away. So 3 weeks later, you're at this really beautiful sunny beach and you're seeing all of these people going into the water. And then you see 3 fins come up in unison. And they head straight for that beach. And you see this couple that had just walked out into the water. They turn around and scream. And that's when the movie ends. So, is this movie low budget? Yeah. Was it, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Because I round up because of all of the hatred of horror movies on International Movie Database. I will round up. So this movie was like a 5.5 out of 10 to me. But I loved the cast. The acting was really good. The story was understandable. I liked how they continued. How they came up with a way to continue this franchise. It was very limited by its budget, but I tell you, the shit with Daniel was cool. The kills were cool. When Carl got ate, that was fucking phenomenal. Them pulling Daniel up and half of him gone. There was some good stuff. Craig's body, Leslie's body. There was some gore in it. So this movie isn't as bad as people claim it is. And I liked it. All right. It wasn't anything great, but it was a decent watch. And that's fun. That's why I watch movies, to entertain me. And this movie did entertain me. And I did wish during the movie that it had a bigger budget so that it could have done more stuff. Because what they were able to do was good. I did, like I said, I got tired of them using the exact same tropes as the first movie, which I thought was lazy. But the stuff that was not like the first movie, the storyline, the fake out, like when you thought that guy's arm was going to get ripped off like the first movie, and it didn't. Her being pregnant, the little piranha pack of baby sharks, it was different enough to be different. Yeah. So I'm okay. I'm okay with the movie. It could have been hugely better. But as a nice popcorn flick for your shark night, it was great. It was fun. It was all right, And like I said, always remember, it is not a sequel to the first one. It's a reboot. Because unlike it and the original, 2 and 3 are the same storyline. 3 is a sequel to 2, which is just a reboot of 1. So 2 and 3 are the same storyline. And 3 is like a lot better than 2. But 2 could have been great. So like, you never know who's going to see these things. So that's the reason why I harp on it a little bit. If you were one of the actors in here or something like that, or the director or whatever, if you were to ever see this, I just want you to know the movie is fine. I understand you didn't have a big budget, and that stopped you from being able to do some things. You should not have copied so much of the first movie, though. But aside from that, really good ideas. I love the acting. The acting was fine. I liked the cast of characters. So yeah, it's all right. I mean, for me to give something a 3, you're going to have like a lot more bad stuff than this. I'm going to have to hate the cast, hate the story, think this is stupid. And I didn't. I didn't have any of those with this movie. It didn't have a big budget, which I wish it did. And it copied a little bit too much from the first one, but it also had a lot on its own. It wasn't too short. So it checked some negative boxes, but it didn't check me enough negative boxes for me to think it a bad movie. I think it's a mediocre, perfectly fine movie, and it's a decent film to watch, especially if you watch all these 3 in a row. It's all right. It's okay. You'll be all right. And yeah, so that was Deep Blue Sea 2. Love you, miss you. Bye-bye, and I will see you in the next one, where we will be doing Deep Blue Sea 3. Always remember, never forget, you're a very, very special person, and I will see you with Seamageddon in the next video. Want to say bye? Say bye. Bye. Keep rocking very, very hard. And keep screaming, but only when appropriate. Adios.